Bianca, I'm so honored that you are here. Thank
Thank
you.
thank you.
I'd
Mhm.
love for you to introduce yourself properly to the
Sure.
audience. Tell people who you are. Give us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, how you grew up. I want to hear about your husband. Give us a window into who you are, so people can get to know you.
Okay, great. Well, I'm gonna just start with my age because I feel like that's an important part, and it explains a lot as to why I find myself here. But I'm a 46-year-old woman, a Jewish Latina woman. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and I came to New York City not too long after graduating from Cornell University. And I think because I went to Cornell, I was kind of like destined to end up in New York City. So many people do. So,
Totally. I was gonna say, after being in Cornell, where it's really, really cold, you have to,
yeah,
like, come back to and also, like, kind of out of civilization. I went to
yeah,
I went to Binghamton, by the way,
so you know.
the not as fancy and not as academic or smart sister of Cornell, so I know that area well, but
It's
yes,
freezing. Yeah.
coming back to the city, very important, very important.
So important. And don't get me wrong, I went to Miami first to warm up after 4 very cold years
Oh
there.
my gosh,
Um,
amazing.
but I returned to New York City. I think I just was always destined to live here. And I state my age at the very beginning because I think, a lot of women that have struggled with pregnancy loss or that are fertility challenged, they're in my age range. They're in the 40 plus age range and many are like me trying to have their first child. Uh of course there's so many that, are dealing with secondary fertility, infertility, I'm sorry. But there are so many who came into, the idea of later motherhood, obviously later on in their life, right? And and it's not necessarily because it was a choice either. And I think this goes back to what you were saying, like, as a Jewish woman, for me, I grew up with very traditional values of, you meet your partner and then you grow your family. And I remember in my mid 30s, I didn't really have a structured idea of who my partner was. I had been with um my partner, my husband for a little bit, but like I wasn't sure like was he the man I was going to marry? And so I had a lot of questions bubbling up in my brain about whether I should freeze my eggs. Did I want to be a mom? Even could I be a mom by the time I got married and was ready to have kids with my husband? All of this stuff was like swirling, like percolating. And I was going to therapy at the time. And to be honest, it was a topic that kept coming up, during all my sessions, and my therapist was like, "If there's anything you take away, from our work together," she's like, "You need to go freeze your eggs right now." And we discussed this for about probably somewhere between 6 months to a year. It's been a while since, that time for me, so I don't remember, the exact span of time that we went back and forth, like how many sessions it took, but she eventually handed me the number of the fertility doctor that her daughter used, to get pregnant, and
Wow,
it was a very
wow.
well. Yeah, yeah, I was it's funny because like, I'm just gonna quickly say, like, I don't think I could have been a mom in my 20s and 30s because I just have always been a little bit immature in terms of, like, where I was, like, just I think maybe delayed compared to other people in terms of being more, like, grown up and productive and efficient because I was so lazy about researching clinics and doctors and she finally was just like, take this and just go." Because we kept talking about it and I wasn't doing it. And so I was like probably around like 36 or 37 because I started the process at 38, which is kind of late compared to the age that most women are freezing their eggs, or making embryos. But I did it, and I think like they did the retrieval. like, maybe days after I turned 39. So, it was like a it was something I was really proud of doing, because I just didn't know. Like, I didn't know whether my husband would eventually propose to me. He actually went with me to, the retrieval, the day of the retrieval, and he helped, give me the shots and everything, going through the
Wow.
whole process. So he was present through it, but I just didn't know, and I also didn't feel like I wanted to put that pressure on him to be like, "Let's go, let's go, let's go," even though I think I still did to some degree.
I was gonna say just by virtue of the fact that you were doing this, you were kind of saying like,
Yeah,
"Hey." I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth now,
right.
but in my head, the way I'm kind of thinking about it is that, like, you're like, "I'm doing this thing. You can
Yeah.
be along for the ride or not, but I'm doing this thing." And the fact that he was along for it and he
Oh, he
was
wanted to
supportive
be.
is incredible,
Yeah,
incredible.
he's a really good man. Yeah. Okay, I can't start crying yet. Anyways, so he went with me. He was there with me, throughout the process, and but for me, like, I think the first box I had to check was actually doing it because, like I said, I just there were a lot of things I was dragging my feet on in my 30s, and also, like, just a little bit more information about me. I'm an entrepreneur. I used to work as a creative director, a writer, an art director, and advertising. I was in the corporate world for about 8 years, but then I left to start my own thing. And when I started my own thing, that became my baby. That was my child, and that's what I was like nurturing and growing, and it was all encompassing. So, I think a lot of like my timeline was really affected by becoming an entrepreneur. Um, and no one, I didn't go to business school. Um, I did go back to school to fine tune my skills before I went into the corporate world. So I had a lot of training, but I didn't learn how to be a businesswoman. So this was part of like why so much of my time was taken up, and just like so just hyper focused on my work and trying to support myself. And I'm glad I did that because just like egg freezing, like I have no regrets. I created a business, I froze my eggs, and I finally got married at 44 years old. My husband was 43 when we got married, and a couple months before we actually tied the knot, we did go to my IVF doctor, our IVF doctor, and we told him, "We're gonna do this thing, but we're gonna get married first because that's just what I learned you had to do." And the doctor was like, "You should do this now." And I was like, "No, no, 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 no." And I had like what makes me laugh about so much of this journey is that I just had it all scripted out of how it was gonna go. And I did have a hunch that I struggled with infertility because it's a little weird that I was with my husband for 10 years and we never, like, accidentally, got pregnant, although we were very, very careful, but, like, you hear about these couples that have been together forever and they have a baby before they get married or, like, something happens, and we we never had an oopsie, and so I had, like, a little thought in my mind that maybe we had some kind of issue, but the script that I had written in my head was that we would get married, we would get pregnant soon after, and we would have our baby, the following year, and the crazy part of this is we did get pregnant about a month and a half after we got married, which
Oh,
even though I scripted that, it was surprising because I was like, "Okay, maybe that little thing that was in my head telling me that we might have, like, infertility issues, maybe that was just, like, this stupid little doubt." But that doubt ended up being so much of a reality because we lost that pregnancy, um, kinda, like, halfway into the first trimester, and then, we kind of we st I would say that was, like, the beginning of everything. Losing that first pregnancy was, like it was, like, the minute we bought our ticket for this super long train ride that we didn't know we didn't know when it would be over. And that's the train ride that we're still on. And we've had a lot of stops and it's been interesting and we met a lot of people on the way. Um, you mentioned Amy Raup, who is my fertility coach or consultant. Um, and I switched clinics, which was a huge deal. Um,
I want you actually hold on before we get to that.
uh,
Because I want you to share. I want to hear all about the switching of the fertility clinics, and I want you to tell everyone about Amy. But I'm curious. First of all, I just want to say that, like, just listening to you share, you know, your mindset about how you wanted to do things sort of in the right way, whatever right way was for you. That you felt like there was a certain order to things, and that you weren't, even though doctors or other people were saying like, "Oh, no, you need to try, need to this," that you wanted to, um, you wanted things done in the way that you felt was right before moving forward. And then, like, making this plan, as so many of us do, right? So many of us are like, "Oh, great, I'll go to school, and then I'll meet someone, and then I'll get pregnant, like, get married, and then I'll get pregnant." Like, we all have a plan. You had your plan, and then it happened, and then you had a miscarriage. Like, I'm so sorry about your baby, and I know what it's like to have your hopes and your dreams dashed. What I'm wondering is, like, what was the point where you decided to go public and decided to share about some of the pieces that you were going through? Was it at that point, or was it later on as you continued on this journey?
well, I was really open, like, upon finding out that I was pregnant, I told people that were, close to me within my circle, and I wasn't, like, gonna hide it. I wasn't gonna play that game of, like, wait until you're, in 2nd trimester. I just was super excited, and I also felt like at that point that I had, like, beat the odds because here I was a 44-year-old woman getting pregnant, like, on the 2nd try, and I wanted to I wanted that story as it was happening at that moment to be inspirational to other women. Like, look, like, you can get married late and you can have a baby and be in later motherhood, which I love that term. It's actually a book that my friend Bettina wrote. It's called The Joy of Later Motherhood, and I highly recommend that to anyone who is beginning a natural or IVF journey because it's a really beautiful book about just you know being in that place of transition of becoming a mother and there's a chapter that relates to any woman on any unique journey. Um, so yeah, I think, for me, like it was just like it was just really, I think, important to inspire people. And I thought, okay, let me just tell people that I'm pregnant. And then when we lost the baby, I was like, how am I going to communicate what's happened to me in a way that's like at least teaching people something or maybe like it just makes me feel better in terms of connecting with other people. There were a lot of reasons for it, and so I started just sharing that I was struggling, and I also shared things about how leading up to the loss, the things I did, like how I had changed my workout or how I had, um, you know, shared my news with family members and friends, and it was a little sad because, like, I was informing people that I had lost a baby, but I was still sharing everything that led up to that point, and I didn't know it's like when you get married and you're on Instagram or TikTok, your whole feed is, like, bridal stuff because you're searching that stuff, right? And all of a sudden, my feed went from, like, wedding stuff, because I had just gotten married, to, miscarriage, like, everything. And it actually still is predominantly, like, pregnancy and pregnancy loss focus when I hop on Instagram. That's okay, though, because I like watching this content, but, I just really felt this need to put something out there. And I don't think at the beginning it was really so directed, Amy. Like, I don't think there was like a plan. Now right now there's a plan. Right now, like, everything I post is there's a lot of, thought and meaning and intention going into it, because I've been on the journey for a while now. But at the beginning, I just was like, let me put my pain out there. Let me put the things that sparked joy while I was pregnant, and I started seeing other people do it, and it was nice to latch on to the people that were going through what I was going through, or, like yourself, had gone through it, in years prior and had a lot of advice to share with me.
No, I think there's something right, there's something so powerful about community, right? That you were doing it for yourself because it's something that you wanted, that you needed, and at the same time, while it was comforting you, you were also comforting other people. I mean, that's I and just speaking about the feed, I know my feed, the I was supposed to have a baby feed is infertility, pregnancy loss, and Jewish and Israel stuff. Like, it's like, and food.
God,
I
it's
was
so
gonna say, and food and cooking and recipes because,
oh, I'm
like,
glad that's mixed in. Because if that wasn't mixed in, I mean, it would be just hard to log on to my account and look at the feed.
correct. Okay, so now take us to that place where you started sharing and then, you were trying to figure out also like what your next step is. And you mentioned you switched clinics, and I know that you have a lot to say about that. So,
Yeah, switching clinics actually happened recently. So I would say for like most, because I've been on the journey. It'll be like in I guess in like September, will be 2 full years of, of fertility work. And fertility is like just means everything. I mean, it incorporates natural, there's this huge umbrella. But so trying to conceive. It has been almost 2 years. But I had been with this clinic for since I was 38, and probably even, like, before that because they're like I said, I was dragging my feet for a long time, like, I probably had, like, maybe 3 meetings with them, and then 6 months passed before I even, like, signed the papers to freeze, but it had been, like, now from the time that I left that clinic, it was, like, 8 years. It was 8 years I had made a commitment to them
wow.
and to myself, and so leaving was really hard because it was me, like, putting my foot down and saying, "I need to try something different because what we're doing isn't working, and I only have 2 embryos left." And that was the scariest decision I'd ever made, but once I made it, it was super empowering, and I felt like I became a different person as me, number 1, but also a different person in the journey. Um, and that was, like, kind of magical. I knew that I was taking a risk by leaving, but I also knew that let's say I don't get pregnant, which I'm praying that I do, but, like, let's say I don't, like, I didn't want to look back and say, "I should have left." Like, I should have changed things up. I should have tried something new. And, that's what they say, like, isn't there this, like, saying about, like, the crazy person is the one who keeps doing the same thing and, like, expecting different results? And I don't wanna be the crazy person. So
Insanity, right. People say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting something different to happen. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. And that is like a saying or phrase that, like, has always resonated with me because I think, like, just like anybody, like, you can get, like, really comfortable, but it's also that fear of, like, taking that step into the unknown. Um, Amy, my fertility coach, she had been subtly, like, dropping hints like, "You should leave," and she, really stresses, immunology-based care for women over 35, but especially for women over 40 that are trying to have their first child. And, uh
Go ahead. I was gonna ask you, I want you to tell people who Amy is and how you met her. So I
yes.
but keep going.
So Amy Raup is my fertility coach. She's a fertility expert, consultant. She actually went to school to become a doctor, but then things kind of shifted and she fell in love with Eastern medicine, acupuncture, and really the whole like world of fertility. And so she's very clinically knowledgeable. And that was her education, but she went down this path of fertility. She's written, I think, 4 books. I think she's working on another book, or she's, like, updating her, egg quality book, which is, like, probably her most famous book. Um, and I actually found her by reading Bettina's book, The Joy of Later Motherhood, which, it's on my shelf.
I was gonna say we're gonna link it in the show notes actually, and we'll also link Amy's, website as well.
Yeah, Bettina, I always forget her last name because it's, like, a two-part name, but it's Bettina Gordon Wayne. Gordon Wayne hyphenated. And she is just a really cool woman because she writes a lot about aging, and wellness, but also just like aging gracefully. And then she wrote this book, The Joy of Later Motherhood, because she had a child, her only child in her 40s, naturally. And she wanted to inspire women not to be afraid to pursue natural at that age, that it is possible. And so, I bought the book after getting pregnant naturally at 44, because I was like, I need to like learn more about what this experience is going to be like, and and I actually didn't pick up the book until I lost the baby, and I was so glad I didn't pick up the book until then because there's so many chapters in the book about pregnancy loss and healing, and that was something I really needed at the time, and that's how I found Amy Raup, because there's a whole chapter in this book about Amy, and I had heard about Amy before because a lot of people will tell you when you're on your fertility journey, do acupuncture. It's such a cliche thing to hear because everyone says it whether they've done it or not because they think, "Oh, you'll do 1 session of acupuncture and then fall pregnant," and that's absolutely not how it works. But I kept hearing people say, "Oh, why don't you do acupuncture with Amy?" And I just was like, "Ugh, I can't stand hearing about this acupuncture thing." But it wasn't until I read that Amy, had, conceived naturally, um, and she also had pregnancy loss, in her 40s, and so I was like, "I think I wanna work with this woman." I contacted her, and she helped me prepare for my first, IVF transfer of it was my first, fresh transfer, actually, and, you know what? It was not my first it was my first frozen embryo transfer because I already had a failed transfer, and I found her because I wanted to change the course of things because I wasn't having luck, and she was incredible, like, I have to admit, like, I was overwhelmed as any woman can be overwhelmed on this journey with or without help. Uh, I think having, her recommend all these things, immunology testing, and I think that's how we started talking about Amy was the immunology-based care. Immunology testing is is so overwhelming. There's so many tests that they're expensive, they're not covered by health insurance, but they're really important to, like, understand what your body is doing, at this age because our bodies are just not functioning just so perfectly or with the intention of, carrying a baby as they would be in our 20s. So, she
But I'm just gonna interrupt you for a second. Also, the field of reproductive immunology is also super important for any person, not only people who may be going through motherhood or attempting, hopefully trying to get pregnant in their 40s, but for anyone who has kind of failed traditional medicine where things haven't worked, or if they're having recurrent losses and there doesn't seem to be a reason for those losses. I'm just speaking as a person, many of the people in our audience know. So I had 4 second trimester losses in a row. Um, this was, hold on, give me a second. This was between 13 and 15 years ago. So a long time ago. But at that point, everything, all the tests were coming back healthy for me, and all the tests on the babies that I lost, they were also genetically perfect. And no one could figure out why I kept losing these babies. And the field of reproductive immunology was really in its infancy then, and it wasn't really as developed as it is now. But now there is this very standard protocol of people who are constantly like not getting answers from traditional medicine. And then often it's the immunology piece that people then go and seek out. And then they do come up with some answers. So I just wanted to give a plug as you were speaking.
I'm glad
Give
that
a plug.
you're explaining this because I feel like you can explain it better than me, and I always assume that people, like, kinda know what that immunology piece means, but, like, I didn't know what it meant. Like, I had people, like, throwing it at me, and it wasn't until, and that's the benefit of working with a fertility coach is Amy explained all these terms to me, and so she broke down what immunology was and what the tests were would actually how they could possibly help me. And listen, immunology care doesn't work for everyone. I have a friend who spent a few months at the clinic that I transferred to, which the clinic I'm at, I like to be very open about everywhere I go because I feel like it helps other women out there. I go to Rejuvenating Fertility Center, which is on 57th Street and 8th Avenue in Manhattan. And this is 100% immunology based care. And they do not, they don't turn anyone away that is having fertility issues. Not that like any other clinics would turn other people away, but like, there are clinics that have said like, we don't like, they will tell people like, we just don't think that we can do anything more for you. So it's time for you to go get a surrogate or it's time for you to adopt. Like so many women I know have said their doctors have told them that point blank. And those are the women that actually ended up getting pregnant naturally later on, which like blows my mind. But this clinic, like, it doesn't matter your age or what kind of fertility struggle you've had, like, they welcome you with open arms and will do the best they can to help you. I had a friend who went there who's had so much, hardship in terms of this journey, and she was not able, to get pregnant there. Um, and listen, just because it's immunology-based care, it doesn't mean that it will be the fixer, you know what I mean? But I think what they do is they go the extra mile to help figure out the problem. And they've helped me so far, figure out, for instance, that implantation has to happen earlier for me than it had been with my previous transfers. So that's something that, we're going to try. And hopefully, um, some of my blood work tests will come back and and show more of, what might be going on with my husband's, you know, blood work, my blood work, and see if that maybe is a problem in the implantation stage. So there's so much that immunology can do for you, and everyone is like super unique. So you can't kind of like go by. And that's why I try to stay out of these like Facebook chat groups, which I used to like, get sucked into them, and now I just stay away from them because everyone's, like, saying, this, I did this," and everyone's like, "Oh, I wanna do it, I wanna do it," and it's like, it's just not how it works, like, our
Totally.
bodies are all so different, and you can't get sucked into what someone else is doing because it really comes down to the science, and it comes down to the blood work, it comes down to the tests, and you should have that conversation with your doctor, not a stranger on Facebook.
I 1,000%. Maybe we need to make like bumper stickers for that. It feels like
Yeah, and I think that's
should be
that's what
should be having conversations with I always say actually in some of the disclaimers that we have it I was supposed to have a baby. I mean, we don't give medical advice ever. That's not within our framework. It's not our mission. Our mission is only emotional support. But I always so I always say in our disclaimers, you must we do not give medical advice, period. Please ask your doctor. Period.
Yeah.
Always.
And that's what like and that's why, I changed clinics because I wasn't getting that supportive feeling. And I know that IVF doctors are like they're very busy, and they're very much in demand and they're never going to give you the amount of like time that you want. Like no one's ever going to be like 100% happy with their doctor, at least I don't think so. But to feel that like that your doctor's actually, like, really looking into your file and really looking at every little possible thing and going the extra mile to make sure that, on your transfer day, they feel like they've done everything possible to make sure that this is gonna be successful. That's what I wasn't getting. What I was getting was I was being put on someone on a doctor's schedule to make it easy for them so that they could go on vacation in July, because that's what my previous clinic did. They would schedule everybody, for their transfers at the same time in May so that the lab could all go on vacation. But
Right.
it's like
Correct.
it's mind-blowing, and what I love about my new clinic is it's about the patient, and their vacations, like, are basically scheduled around, their patients' transfer schedules or whatever type of treatment they're getting. So,
Amazing.
for me, that
Amazing.
was like, I needed a change. And there's no way to predict any of this, Amy. Like, I mean, I think one thing that we had talked about, previously in a conversation outside of this recording is that a lot of what you have to prepare for is the next step, like, while you're living the previous step. Like, for me, it's been mental health for the next step. Like, I'm, like, prepared for this working, and I'm prepared for this not working, and if it doesn't work, then, like, I have a plan because I don't wanna spend any time upset. I know I will be let down because how can you not be, um, when you've been on a long, IVF journey, but, like, I just feel that, you know, to get to where you're going, to this place of being a mother, you have to find the beauty in it, and the beauty is the problem solving. Just not everybody looks at it that way. But once you kind of surrender to it, and that's another topic I know you wanted to, like, kinda dig into, once you surrender to, like, the beauty of the problem solving part, it all softens. Like, everything that felt so rigid and tight and anxiety filled just kind of, like, just gets more lax, and you kind of are like, "Okay, okay, let me just flow through this." And that's where I am now.
Can you say more about the what you meant when you said they are all about surrender? I know, look, for so many people, this is like people are constantly chasing the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and hoping that this is going to be the thing that works or the next thing is going to be the thing that works. And they're already thinking 4 steps ahead. I mean, even you said like you have a plan, but the way you said it, which I thought was so beautiful, was that you have a plan whether it works or you have a plan as whether it doesn't work. And I think, I mean, I'll just only speak for myself here. I know for me, like, I didn't even allow myself to think that it wasn't going to work.
And a lot of people that's okay too. Like, a lot of people
Yeah.
won't, they don't like, they feel like that will take them to a negative place, so they stay in that, like, "This is gonna work" spot, and I think that's perfectly fine. Yeah.
But can you share more about I know you specifically sought out work,
Mhm.
um, around surrendering to the process and to whatever it is. Can you say more about that? Because I think that that will really help people that feel stuck and feel like they just don't know what they're going to be, where they're going to be, how they're going to be.
Yeah, because uncertainty can kill you and can give you a lot of anxiety, and I think when you've had, like, repeat loss, like, that is just a really hard place to be, and that kind of, like, you can downward spiral from there, a lot of people do. Um, and I, like, to preface this idea of surrender, like, I definitely, um there were times when I woke up and I would be like, "What's the point of living?" Like, you just like, when you lose a child, which, Amy, I know you can relate to, like, you feel like you're dead, and you just don't wanna, like, wake up and live your life. So I was dealing with a little bit of that, and not a little bit, a lot of it, and I was, like, openly telling people, like, "I feel, like, suicidal, like, I feel like what's the point?" And I had this intense fear of having another miscarriage, and, um, and so this woman, Jackie Glaser, it's funny because, the a Lubitrovich, like, that he came to, switch out our mezuzah, which wasn't kosher, and give us a kosher one, which was, like, such a wonderful mitzvah that he did for us, and he saw me struggling, and he said, "There's this woman, like, that got married later in life, and she had a baby, like, at 50." He's like, "You might wanna reach out to her." So I went on her Instagram and I kinda looked at all her posts, and I just wasn't ready to, like, engage, but I just wrote a little comment, and then she came to my page and she saw, like, my story, and she said, "Bianca, like, let's do a session, and I have this really amazing Zoom course that I think you'll love." And so we did a session and she was like, "I feel your pain," because I told her, like, how I was, like, having these, like, suicidal thoughts, and she was like, she's like, "I think you're, like, fighting this, like, idea that, like, everything's gonna work out because you wanna manifest it." And she's like, Manifestation is the most ridiculous thing ever." And it's true, like, I was, like, journaling, I was, like, making, like, I still wear them, but I was making these bracelets that say baby year, like, I just was everything that I was buying baby clothes, I was trying to, like, manifest, and I was, fantasizing this idea that I was gonna be a mom, and she was like, "I need you to stop, and I need you to just surrender to where you are now, and the fact that, like, you don't know what's gonna happen. Like, you could have a baby, you could not. Like, if you don't have a baby through IVF, there's another way for you to be a mother. Like, you just need to, like, surrender and be grateful with what you have." And I'm like, "What?" It's like I'm like, "I'm not happy with what I have. Like, how could you tell me to be happy with what I have?" I'm, like, here crying and, like, feeling like I don't wanna live because I don't have the one thing that's gonna complete me. And she was like, "That's your problem." And so
Well,
I spent a lot of time talking it out with my husband because I was kinda angry after that session, like, I was like, "No, like, I shouldn't just be happy with what I have, like, if I wanna fight for something, I should be out there fighting for it, like I have been for the past year and a half," was at that point, you know? And, and my husband was just kinda like he took a lot of time to, like, listen to how I was feeling, and he was great for, just letting me vent, but I signed up for the class or the course. I think it was like a 3 or 4-week course, and I learned how to surrender, and that is what has changed everything for me. And as much as, like, I'll say, like, it's not always easy to invite surrender into your life, it it teaches you that, like, your life is so beautiful just as it is. And, here I was thinking that, like, I wanted to end my life, and, now I look back and I'm just like, I was crazy, like, I have this amazing husband, I have this beautiful senior tiny she's under my desk right now, this tiny little chihuahua, she's 16 years old, and every day with her is a blessing, and I have a great family, and I love my home that I'm sitting in right now, like, I just had to start saying all those things, and then I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, I'm nuts. I'm nuts for thinking that this life isn't a million times worth living, and I'm nuts for thinking that having a baby through IVF is the end all be all, because it's not. Like, there's other ways, and surrendering is that first step to problem solving, which is what I said before. Because when you realize how amazing your life is right now, you find a way to plug in that extra thing that you would like, but you also find a way to live without that extra thing that you would like. And those 2 things have to go together. So, I mean, courtesy of Jackie Glaser.
I
I have
I
knowledge.
I look, you know what? I'm just sitting here and I'm number 1, I wanna give you a hug because I because of everything that you've been through and because I remember feeling exactly like that also. I think all of us who have been in in that deep, dark place, like, we all know exactly what that's like, and it's hard to find your way out. Like, I know for me, it was just, like, I couldn't see how it was gonna get any better. Like, it just felt like it was this bottomless pit of darkness.
Feel like a
It
failure, right? Like, you even though
totally
everyone tells you, you haven't failed, you haven't failed your baby, you haven't failed your husband, you haven't failed yourself, it doesn't matter. Like, you feel that way in that moment because your body couldn't bring your baby to term or couldn't, keep your baby alive. And I think it's a really normal feeling that we have to allow ourselves to feel, but also realize that, it's gonna pass, like, you can't help feeling that way, but it's going to pass, and then you have to remember how wonderful your life is, and and listen, like, you are an incredible mom because you value life, right? That's part of, like, who we are as Jewish women. Like, life is so important to 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 us as a people and to our values. And so that that concept of surrender had to remind me that, life is so important, and what are the things I love about my life? What are the things I love about the life that I could potentially give my child? And all that stuff had to, just come into play. And I think this is stuff you already know, but sometimes we need someone to just smack us with it and remind us, you know?
1,000%, 1,000%, because when you're down that far, when you're in that deep of a hole, it's really, really hard to see your way out. I mean, I know for me, there my deepest, darkest time was after I already had 3 of my children, and then we had started having all of these losses when we were trying for the 4th. And so for me, I was climbing my way out for my children, for my husband, for my family, for the life that I had. And so it's exactly right, like, that there's so much beauty in what exists presently, and like, all of us have to remind ourselves that with or without children, or with or without the number of children that we thought we were going to have, that we hoped we were going to have, that there is still so much inherent value and beauty in the here and the now. Yes.
There's
Absolutely.
actually, what's really beautiful is, there's a movie about, like, how IVF came to be. Um, it's either on Netflix or Hulu, and I forget the name of it, but it's about the first IVF baby. I think it was baby Julia. I think so.
I was gonna say, maybe I should know this also, but I don't either, but we'll look it up and I'll find it and we'll put it in the show notes. Okay, go ahead.
And this this film is like, I want everybody listening to watch it, so we have to find out the name of
We'll
it.
find it, we'll
I
find it, don't worry.
I don't remember anything these days, so, like, for you can't rely on me to know the names of things.
Uh,
But,
no, like,
but
say
it's
why is it meaningful?
because the woman who kept the IVF project going, because so many people were against it, so many doctors wanted to stop it because it was like it was basically like a project that they kept having to get funding for, and just ethically everyone was against it. And the woman that fought tooth and nail for it and was responsible for this first IVF baby, to be born, she struggled with lifelong endometriosis. And the doctors told
Wow.
her that she would never have a baby. And all she wanted to do was make IVF possible. And so for me, the movie wasn't about IVF and the first baby. For me, it was about this woman who saw beauty in the concept of life. And her role was to create life, to make help women with fertility challenges, find, a possibility for being a mother. And this movie for me was about her. So, without crying again, sometimes I think, well, maybe, like, if some of us can't be moms, like, maybe one of us can be her, like, maybe we all have a role. like, in this bigger picture. And I don't know why I'm, like, crying because, like, this is, like, actually, like, a super happy thing, like, epiphany for me, but, like, that is, like, why, like, I fight so hard to bring TTC women together because I just feel like it's about sharing knowledge and sharing hope and just sharing that path for all of us to be on strongly together. Um, and I think about this woman all the time. Like I just think like, wow, like what a huge, you know, like just like like a huge thing, like I can't even the word is escaping me, but like huge contribution that she gave to the world of IVF and as a woman who couldn't have a baby. Like it's just incredible.
You're making me think about actually, I'm gonna do something which I am told I'm never supposed to do as an organization, um, that is mention other organizations because they're my competition, but I'm gonna do it anyway because there is an organization you may or may not have heard of. Many of our people in our audience know about it. It's called Boneh Olam,
Mm,
and Boneh Olam is an organization that was founded probably, like, maybe 20 plus years ago, um, by this Hasidic couple that they themselves were struggling to have kids and they were never able to have kids. And what they did is they created this organization to help fund IVF for other parents across the country and so on and so forth. And they have different branches and blah, blah, blah. Why am I mentioning this? Because this couple, to this day, I mean, they're now old, they're grandparents' age, they never had any children themselves.
mm.
But if you look at the statistics, when you go onto their website, you see they say, we have made, I don't know, thousands of babies at this point, whatever it is, because of this one couple. So it just makes me think about this woman who she was
It's
the one,
incredible. It's
right?
incredible.
Like there is and how there is so much that, I mean, these are two very, like, powerful and very big stories of people who made tremendous impacts on the world, but, I mean, not all of us are have the capacity to make these massive impacts, but even I believe, and what I try to do with this work here is even helping one other person feel less alone, even letting them know that they will get through the pain, they will get through whatever they're going through, even if it doesn't end with a baby in their arms, that there still is value and meaning. That is what we do here. And so everything that you're saying about surrendering to the process and very much like leaning into the now and the beauty and the capacity and the, like, contributions that each of us individually can make, it's so powerful.
It is
So
it's
powerful.
powerful, and I think, like, we sometimes, like, don't know this, like, role we're supposed to play, like because we write the script in our heads, but that's not the real script, the script is, like is what you're living in real time and the beautiful surprises and things that just, like, fall into your lap, and then, like, you get to mold into whatever feels right, and I never, like, thought in a million years that, like, this would become, like, like, just this world of TTC would become, like, something that I could be, like, a loud voice in, and, I've always like, my company was about empowering women, to get in shape. That's why I created MsFit.com, which was, like, the first fitness and fashion blog meant to empower women to go to the gym more regularly. And so that's where I started. And to find myself here, you know, um, I'm getting ready to write a book about mental health and fertility. And I founded a retreat for women that are on a fertility journey. My retreat co-founder is Amy. And w I just never thought I'd be doing these things, and I'm happy to be doing them because, I feel like this is what, I needed when I was at my lowest, and I did find it through resources other people created. So to kind of, you I guess, like, step into that role of being yet another resource for women that they just need something, and we can't define, like, what every woman needs because it's so different. Like, some women don't cry, like, I tear up, like, rehashing stuff. I will cry in, like, a happy movie. So, like, for me, it's like, I will just cry very easily, period.
I do too, by the way. I do too.
But yeah, some women are, like, really tough, and then they break down at a point that, another woman wouldn't. So it's just really interesting, how we all find healing in very, very different ways at different times. But there's one thing that, goes without question is that, you know, we all we all need to find a way to heal and take care of ourselves on this journey because if we don't, like, it's it's hard, like you say, it's just hard, and I do think that, like, it's hard to have success as a in the form of, getting pregnant unless you're you're on a healing journey, unless you're thinking positive and you're, taking good mental health care, but physical care of yourself. Like you 100% have to be. So if that's one thing people hear and it makes them, shift what they're doing and get out of that dark place and self doubt and all of that and comparison, then I want people to do that because it's just you have to be happy to be able to, have success in this type of, fertility challenged place. And if you're 20 and you might be like in a bad mood or have drama in your life, whatever, like fine. Like you can get pregnant more easily because you're 20. But when you're 35 plus, like our bodies just like they just absorb everything. And it's different for this, for this category of women. So
1,000%. 1,000%. It, as we're wrapping up here, I wanted to know if you could just, share a little bit about how your Jewish identity played into all of this, especially post October 7th. I know there were some things that we spoke about in the pre conversation, and I'd love for you to share a little bit more just about how you're feeling now in this moment.
I think it was hard being pregnant when October 7th happened. And I'm not saying that like my shock and, fear and all the other emotions I was feeling as were so many Jews around the world led to my miscarriage, but I don't think it helped it. It's just like what I was just saying now, like it's hard to have a healthy pregnancy when you're not in a good place mentally and physically. So that was tough for me. And then it was tough going through the miscarriage process, which was like really hard on my body. I've had 2 miscarriages so far and like one was like super easy, like it felt like a heavy period, and the first was I felt like my husband almost took me to the ER because I was in so much pain.
Goodness.
So that was hard to go through in the recent aftermath of 10/7, because I was like angry. I was just angry at the world. I was, angry at Hamas. I was angry at people not supporting Jews more. And so in a way, if I think back, like, okay, it did make kind of made sense that didn't get pregnant for almost another year afterwards, because there was so much, emotion that was consuming me. But I think, what I learned because I became a bit of an activist, supporting Jewish causes and speaking up for Israel and the hostages. What I learned was that, I had this huge, amazing, loving Jewish community right here in New York City that was so supportive of me, in my TTC and fertility journey, and they're always building me up, and I was just that gave me a lot of strength. And these were a lot of the people that, like, that's kinda like how I found Jackie Glaser because, like, someone told me, like, from my Jewish community, like, "Oh, is your mezuzah, like, is it kosher?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know." Like, there are all these things, like, led to me finding people that was leading to this, you know, this huge source of healing and just, like, reorganization of thought. And so the more positive I got from, being surrounded by, my Jewish community, like, I just like, things got better for me, and it's really that simple, is that, when we come together, whether it's religion-based or, something else, like, we build each other up, and we're there for each other, and we catch each other, and, so now, like, even though I don't foresee this happening, but, like, if I should spiral again or find myself in, like, a weak moment, like, I have so many fellow Jewish people that I can reach out to that became part of my network after 10/7, and that feels good. That feels really good for me.
Look, we all need people, right? And we also we not only need people, but we need people who really get it, who really understand. And I think for those of us in the Jewish community, I think there is something unique about, right? There is the uniqueness about who we are as a people, who we are as a religion, as a community, but also layer the wanting to have kids and this kind of like this idea that permeates our community, this like be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah.
Those two things, right, are very much part of who we are as Jews. And so when like we can get support from the people who really get it and understand the pressures or even the social constructs of what being Jewish is, it's even more powerful.
What you just said is, like, is everything, like, that is the reason that, I can wake up in the morning and feel like I have supportive people in my life that understand why this is so important to me, or that understand, like, why having, like, a baby was, like, like it became everything for me, because a lot of my non-Jewish friends, like, they didn't understand, like, "Bianca, like, you run a business, like, you're an influencer, you're a content creator, you're going to events, all this stuff. Why do you need to have a baby?" And, they just didn't get it, but, having that conversation with fellow Jewish women, or couples or friends or whatever, like, they understood, and I didn't even have to explain. And that is, like, it's something that I'm grateful. Another thing that's part of my surrender process is I'm grateful to be part of a community that has, beautiful values such as this, because it's it's just the fact that having family is so important that makes me realize, you know what? If we adopt a child, um, if IVF isn't successful for us, like, that's okay. Like, it's still family. Like, it's still we're still doing what we set out to do, is to expand and build our family, and, um, it doesn't scare me, and it doesn't scare me because of these, like, strong values we have as Jewish people. So, um, I've learned so much. Like, I told you, like, I was a late bloomer when we started this conversation, and at 46, I feel like I just feel like I've learned so much about, the type of person, I am and still am growing to be, but also how I fit into, this greater Jewish community. So it's exciting because, I know this is, in a way, like, I know it's not the beginning, but I it's like it's the beginning of the next stage of my life.
Bianca, I'm gonna level with you, and I'm gonna say, or maybe I'm gonna push you. Actually, is maybe a better way of saying this. Okay, I'm meeting you now in 2025 and you're 46. But I imagine that if you and I were to have met 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you would still be an incredible advocate, thoughtful, passionate, interesting, like just wonderful, like multifaceted human being. But in a very different way with different focus. Like
Yeah.
it's in order for you to be where you are right now, it means that you already had the building blocks and you already had the people around you who were giving you what you need to get to this point. So I, I I'm going to push you and say, like, you may say that you were not as mature, or maybe you were not as focused, or whatever it is, but whatever version that was got you to where you are now. And so I would have loved to meet her then too, honestly.
Well, they say like that, God gives you Hashem gives you challenges, and they turn you into like the person that you're meant to be. And I learned this beautiful thing from other Jewish women that, some of like the heroines, from the Torah all had fertility issues. And, you kind of learn as a child, like, all the stories and people giving birth to whoever and so, but, like, you never like, fertility is not something that, like, I remember, like, really focusing on, and then when I thought about it, I was like, "Oh my god, yes." Like, some of these heroines did have fertility issues, and then look what they ended up doing, and they also did eventually become mothers, and so that is just a beautiful side of it, and that's what gives me hope. Honestly, it doesn't matter, like, if I'm at the end of my, IVF journey, like, I will still never give up hope.
You're just you're incredible. I could talk to you for hours. I mean, we were talking about that this before also, but I wanna wrap up here with just a couple of very quick questions. Um, we're trying something new here actually on our podcast, so our audience will let us know if they think this is something we should continue with. So I'm curious, are you a person who more is a night owl or someone who likes to wake up in the morning and get things done? Like, or has that changed at all even over the course of your journey?
Well, I've always been a night owl, but I do like waking up early in the morning, getting my workout done, like walking our dog and drinking a matcha because now I drink matcha as a first vitamin. But I would say that like as I've been on this journey for 2 years, like I've had to wake up super early to go get blood
Right.
work and to go to the clinic. And I find that like if you're the first one in, you can be the first one out. So I have turned more into an early morning person, but I'm kind of interested to see how that changes, like, once you become a mom, like, you don't really have a choice, like, you're gonna be, like, up early, into the wee hours of the morning and, and then up early to, like, take care of your baby, so I just feel like whatever, whatever life brings me to, like, I'm ready for it, even if that means, like, no sleep.
Amazing, amazing. Look, I mean, there are plenty of reasons why some of us get no sleep that have nothing to do with I mean, the news these days, I think, has been
Yeah.
yeah, we I was
I had a teacher that told me, "You can sleep when you're dead, Bianca,"
oh
and
god.
I'll
Yeah,
never I'll never forget that
God,
because he was right, like, you're
totally.
right, like, I can sleep when I'm dead, so I'll keep living as much as dynamically as I can awake.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, next question. Comfort food or something that you did beyond the acupuncture, which we know was like yes, it's very nurturing and really beautiful and healing, but something different than that, either comfort food or an activity that you did when you felt like things were really, really too much and you just needed something that would really just feel like a warm hug.
Honestly, taking mikvah was for me, like, and something I actually have to schedule that when I get off this podcast recording for you because, I was feeling like I needed it, and that, going to do mikvah was, something I didn't grow up with, and honestly, that I didn't really find out about until later and later in life, and it has, like, this very special I know it's special because it's like a beautiful ritual, but, like, for me, since, like, I didn't have that much experience with it, I feel like every time I go, it's just really, it's just really spiritual. So I kind of feel a little bit reborn and like and just, you know, you dunk yourself into the water and you say these beautiful prayers and blessings and it's just like a renewal. So I would say like it's my favorite thing to do to feel better and to just refresh.
I love that. I love that. Mikvah is such a I mean, it's one of the oldest traditions around, right? And there is something very powerful about going in and ritually purifying yourself. I mean, you could take a bath in your own house, right? You could go into a shower in your own house. You could also, you could go into a lake, but there's something about like the place. There's something about it just the prayers. There is something very powerful about it that I totally hear you.
And
I
this is
totally
something that, traditionally, like, is a lot of different cultures, have in kind of different ways, and, like, I am Latina, so, like, in Latin American culture, they go into the hot cave, the kinda like the steam room, and then detox, and it's in the same way, like, kind of like a rebirth, a renewal, and blessing of, like, who you are. So, I feel like this exists for so many cultures, and however you do it, it's just like it's a way to it's a way to reinvigorate yourself, which I think, more people need to do.
I love it. I love it. And last question. Favorite guilty pleasure show, guilty pleasure podcast, like what makes you smile? When things are terrible and you just need something, what makes you smile?
I mean, I hate saying this because it's, like, not really in line with this topic,
No,
but
you have to say it now. You have
okay,
to say it.
I'm a big true crime fan,
That's amazing. Go ahead, say more, say more.
and, my husband and I probably watch at least 1 to 2 episodes of Dateline per night, like, we have it on, like, sometimes during dinner when we're cooking, and it's so morbid, but what I've gathered from it, because even my acupuncturist told me, like, "Bianca, you have to stop watching true crime because it might get in the way of, like, of your of getting pregnant," and I did consider it for a moment, but then I realized, like, what I love about true crime is they figure it out, like, they figure out, like, who did it, who's the bad guy, and they put that person in jail and they bring closure to the family. And that's what I love about true crime. And I think that's problem solving. And so I'm not going to quit it because I'm a problem solver. And yeah, that's my guilty pleasure.
And there's a happy ending. I mean, so to speak, meaning
Closure.
closure that it doesn't linger on, that it's not, it's one of these unsolved mysteries. It's something that, like, there's something terrible happens, but then they find the person and then there's closure.
Family
I
can go on, they can, like, go on with their lives,
yeah,
and that's the part I live for, but, yeah, I know my acupuncturist was like, "Bianca," she's like, "I think you watch too much true crime," and I was like, "I do, but, like, I don't know, like, I it's like, it makes me feel good." It's so
I love it. I love it, and honestly, it makes so much sense. So, I mean, yes, you should continue going to acupuncture, but, if this helps you, then just ignore that piece. Oh gosh, Bianca,
really
thank
love just
you.
chatting with you. You're such like, you're just so positive, and I knew when I found you, and I read the name of, like, your Instagram handle and this incredible brand that you created, I knew we were going to have incredible synergy.
No, look, I'm so grateful to you. I'm so grateful. It is not every person who can be so open, frank, and really bare pieces of their soul to the broader community for the purpose of sharing with others so that other people can feel less alone and being so vulnerable about it and saying like I this is not easy for me and my story is not complete yet. I don't know what the ending is, and yet I'm still here and I'm talking about it and I'm sharing it because it's important, and I'm really just so grateful to you.
Grateful to you as well.
Thank you.